All right, thank you all for coming. Let's call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. First item on the agenda is roll call.
So Aaron Moran, Chris Zellner.
Here.
Joe Zisselsberger.
Here.
Kristen Runge.
Here.
Nyla Fry.
Here.
Jack Heineman.
Here.
Sam Kaufman.
Here.
Next item on the agenda is confirmation of open meeting compliance.
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Waunakee Tribune on 5/2. The final agenda was posted in all three official posting locations on 5/2, and the final agenda and packet were made available online on 5/2. Just a couple notes for the audience. Please be sure you sign in for accurate record keeping. And anybody interested in participating in public comment or public hearing portion, please give me the form prior to that agenda item.
All right, then our third item is public comment. Do we have any forms turned in for public comment?
We have one. So we have John Dooley at 2611 Dublin Way, Waunakee.
All right. John, the floor is yours.
And while
For
John's
3
coming up,
minutes at least. Yeah,
if
go
anybody
ahead.
is online participating and you want to have a public comment, please click raise hand and we'll give you the chance.
All right, and if you'll recall, press the button until it turns green. You're good to go.
Listen to my wife every day. You don't have to tell me what to do.
Oh, but I like it. So,
Again, John Dooley, 2611 Dublin Way, and I need you to know that I'm here not only just for myself, but for my contingency of folks, which is really just my wife, and she doesn't really like me that much, so it's just me, okay? But I'm sorry I missed the first meeting when our two new members were seated, or whatever the official word is, but I came just to say how happy I am that both of you have joined the board. I understand that we don't live in a vacuum in Waunakee, Wisconsin, but I think the thing that excites me about the two new members in particular is that hopefully maybe you can get the board to turn back a little bit to do things that are specifically really good for Waunakee. And some of those things may not be the best for Madison or Dane County or some surrounding communities, but I would really like to see us get back to our first priority would be Waunakee, Wisconsin. And that's all I have to say. Now, my wife would back me up on that too.
all right,
Just- okay.
thanks, John. Thank you. Any other comment cards, Carla?
I don't have any.
Anyone online?
No.
All right, seeing none, we will close public comment and we'll go to consent agenda. Do we have anything we would like pulled from consent agenda today? Seeing nothing, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item then is reports and announcements and police committee.
We met about 2 weeks ago, I guess. Don't have the exact date in front of me, but pretty much talked about 3 different things. First one was bike licensing in the village. The thought was, yes, we want to continue that. There's some good reasons. So that'll come back at another point. Second item was our department update, just what's gone on in the village during Q1. And the third thing was a discussion around the record management system and a potential change there. That was it.
Thank you. Next up is Fire District. I attended Fire District for the first time as a committee member. We reviewed the minutes. We reviewed the intergovernmental agreement very briefly and really didn't have much discussion around that at all. We talked about what to do about the upcoming departure. John Kusha is stepping away from Fire Committee, so the Westport seat will need to be filled. And we also talked about, or we had a public comment that we should be recording the meetings. There was a small discussion on that, but I think that I'll be recommending that at the next meeting because we do have a lot going on. It would be nice to have a recording of those meetings. So that is Fire District. Utilities Commission met and we did a number of things. We, of course, reviewed minutes and approved the bills. We went over financial documents and received a report and an audit that was excellent. We went over bids for the purchase of a substation transformer and voltage regulators. Went through an update of construction-wide village projects and had an update on well 6 and the water tower project. And we are anticipating a rate increase, which we're filing for on June 1st. That's when the filing is with the Public Service Commission, and that may or may not be approved by the Public Service Commission. So did I miss anything, Tim? Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you. And then we don't have Waunakee on here, but under other committees, boards, and commissions, we'd like a report from Waunakee.
Thanks, Kristen. So I put together just a little synopsis of the event for the board to have a good understanding of what all is entailed with Wannaboom, since we've pretty much adopted this within the community. And I wanted to share some highlights of it, what it takes to put this event on, and then have a short video, which is just over 2 minutes, that to show you the actual event. So before I start, with a show of hands, can I see who's been to Wannaboom? Okay, so a good amount of people. So I'm going to start with logistics, organization, and details from the people that are involved in setting this up. Since we are appointing these people tonight for another year, hopefully they'll be appointed because we'll be in trouble if they're not. Because you'll hear what all goes into this. So I wanted to highlight that and take a short amount of time here, and then there's about a 2 minute, just over 2 minute video for us to watch. So naming those people, for our staff people, Courtney Moorhart's here tonight, as well as Connie Gavinsky. They're on the committee. And what this committee is really about is people that were excited about this event from the very get-go, and then some that I just pretty much dragged into it to volunteer and help with their time. Be frank about that. Jade Hofelt is one, so I'll point out the people that are here as we go. So Jade is really in charge of the logistics of the food carts, as well as she owns an airplane company. So we have an F-35 flyover and all those things that go with it. So a very important person to have in with that. Ellen is here with the chamber. The chambers jumped right in when we were approaching them as to be a participant with the event. So they're responsible for the beer tent and making sure that everything goes cleanly within that beer tent for it. So there's a lot of logistics that she handles for that beer tent. Michelle Johnson. Michelle's in the back row back there. Put your hand up, Michelle. Michelle is an HR person. And an HR person keeps us compliant and doing all the things we're supposed to be doing, as well as, obviously organization-wise, it's pretty great. Julie Zellner. This is my sister. She was pulled in for this. Julie's a nurse and very detail-oriented person, hardworking person, and huge advocate for the event. Alex Schmaltz. Alex, put your hand up. So Alex is my co-male on the group. So he's important to me as I get beat up every once in a while. But Alex works for Shine United and takes care of all the marketing advertising for the event for us. Jennifer Schmaltz. Stacy Ryan. Jennifer, put your hand up. Stacy Ryan, who's not here. Cindy Cubza. Trudy Leader, and Trudy's not here. And Amy, my wife, right there. They're all teachers. Enough said. As far as organization, keeping things on track, and that they are the ones that really do a focus on getting things done in an organized fashion. So I could talk about porta potties and ice and cleaning stations and setup and tear down and all those things, because we have Rip Park, and Rip Park is an ideal park for an event like this. It's 87 acres that you have to make sure is safe and secure. Okay, for the event. That's where everything kind of flows from, whether it's parking, traffic, bus routes, bus stop locations, fireworks, F-35 flyovers, Black Hawk helicopter landing and tour, top-notch bands, concert stage, large beer tent, 4 to 5 food tents. We have RC racing cars, face painting, glitter tattoo artists, balloon twisting, bubble station, sidewalk chalk, bike parade for kids. Kristen's done a fantastic job of leading that, and no wipeouts that I'm aware of for Kristen, so that's even better. We have cornhole play, volleyball nets, movies in the park on a Jumbotron, pony rides, fire truck experience with our volunteer fire department guys, climbing wall, petting farm, and a pirate ship, and there's more, but I want to keep it somewhat restrained here. This year, this is new to the public. We'll have a large train ride that's going to go throughout part of the park that people can ride on the train to go through the park. We're going to have a new obstacle course. We're going to have Euro Bungee, which, if you don't know what that is, it's trampolines and people are in harnesses that they can do all kinds of tricks with. Our fireworks show is a little bit bigger with a new soundtrack. Our soundtracks, if you like them, don't like them, you can volunteer to help us with that soundtrack, because it takes us many, many hours to accomplish that soundtrack to put it to the fireworks. But this year, there won't be a song that's similar to any songs we've had in the past. We try to get all generations with that soundtrack as well. Safety, part of that, with what we're doing. We have enhanced audio throughout the park for announcements and emergencies, that we coordinate with, individuals, but making sure that people hear the announcements as they come through. There's been a time or two that we've had some weather instances that we need to make sure we have the public aware. So where all the things happen and keep everyone safe and a good flow in the park. When we started, we had zero power in the park. So we had to start from that spot. Waunakee Utilities, and now Justin Frederick, for Frederick Electric, make sure that we have the park energized with temporary power for all the events that that I kind of started highlighting there. This guides the layout of the park as well. The lights in the park are provided after fireworks because we have no lights in the park other than the tennis courts. Intercon Construction provides us with that temporary lighting and has since the very beginning. So it's critical when we're having people exit the park that we have a lit park. Parking, handicap parking, food deliveries and movements in the park. Again, more logistics that are always, that we're having to deal with as a committee. UTVs, golf carts, et cetera, have been donated or provided at discount rates or free for us. These help us to keep things moving within the park, especially with our EMS services. We provide these for the EMS so they can get throughout the park where there's any issues that happen. Fortunately, we've had very few. Most of them are heat related. We've had some days that have been pretty hot. A couple scrapes and things from that, but nothing significant. Let's see here. Police are also monitoring the park and are always looking out for safety things that happen. There's no sparklers or things that are supposed to be in the park. We've had a couple of people that tried to challenge that, and those were quickly snuffed out. But the real work is monitoring fireworks at the time. So the police, our fire, our public works, all the folks are there with our committee to make sure that everybody's safe during those fireworks, or as safe as we can make them. There's no way to ever make everything completely safe. We know this in our world, but we do the very best that we can. Public works. I want to point them out because they're going to be the ones that are highlighted and recognized this year at the event. They don't even know that yet, but they're the ones that we chose at our meeting the other night. So I just wanted to put that out there. You can expect and understand that they do a lot within this with moving things within the park, meaning picnic tables to getting fencing up, getting things ready throughout the park. Just the event would not happen with our police, fire, EMS, and public works and utilities. It just wouldn't be able to take place. And then lastly, from a village staff point, Renee and Carla, with all of the different things that we have from a financial, all the donations that we take in and the vendors that we have, the background checks, permits, licensing, all of those things, they get that stuff and do a fabulous job of getting them through. When this event started, we had seven food vendors. This year we'll have 18 food vendors in the park. So you can imagine when you're bringing 18 food vendors in, all the different logistics that go with that as well. So I could go on and on, but I'm going to stop there. But I want to recognize the committee and all the work that they do before we get to the video, because I think you'll see on the video how much good this does for our community and for people that come in.
Can't deny it. Life's a treat, I just wanna try it. This is the good life. Soak in the good vibes. We're living out our dreams. We're living wild and free. So drink up the sunshine, 'cause everything's alright. We're living out our dreams. Yeah, this is the good life. Roll the window down 'cause it's 80 degrees. No traffic on the road, summer life is a breeze. We know, let's go. Tastes so sweet and I can't deny it. Life's a treat, I just wanna try it. This is the good life. Soak in the good vibes. We're living out our dreams. We're living wild and free. So drink up the sunshine, 'cause everything's alright. We're living out our dreams. Yeah, this is the good life. Yeah, this is the good life. Yeah, this is the good life.
Yay.
So one of the things you'll notice, we have a lot of sponsors. This year, we're currently at about 55 sponsors. That's almost dead even with what we've had in the past. We lost a couple, and we've added some. So we're pretty much right on where we would be, where we should be. The biggest difference is that the increase in costs by about 25% across the board with this. So that's, we're trying to still work on making that up, but we'll get there. Okay. Within that. So last thing, I just want to say thanks to the board for the support that it's given in the past. Thank you to our committee members. And then thank you to all of our village staff and our donors. It's huge that we have them. And most important thing is that costs have gone up. Costs will continue to go up, especially if our volunteers don't step up. When we have to pay for things versus having volunteers, it's a big deal. So for those out there who may see the video or watch this video and hear about the event, if giving an hour or two of your time, it makes it a really worthwhile event for yourself as well as the rest of the community. Nobody is treated poorly at this event. Michelle, who's here, several years back, probably 4 years back, had a gentleman come up to her and ask her who runs the event. And she said, well, we do. And he didn't understand. He goes, no, well, who runs the event? Meaning he thought we had a planner. And that's what he did for a living. And he said, well, I want to say, I don't really believe you guys, that you guys are doing it because this is one of the top 5 events that I've been and I work throughout the country. So that's how good the committee is and how organized and how good of a product that has been put out for our community and for our surrounding communities. So thank you to that committee.
Thank you guys so much for serving on the committee. We really appreciate it. And it is 2 months from yesterday, 60 days away from today, I believe, if I'm doing my math correctly. If you have not gone, it's a great event to go to. Definitely take the time to go to Waunakee. If you're interested in volunteering, our volunteer sheet is up online soon, right now already. Excellent. So yeah, take a look at the video, decide how you want to get involved. You can volunteer for an hour, an afternoon, for the whole day at the event. It's really a wonderful way to spend the 4th of July with your neighbors and your community. So thank you guys all very much. Yeah. All right. Thanks. Yeah. Any other committee reports or announcements? All right.
Kristen, I want to just say, you guys should leave. They spend thousands of
Yes.
dollars on this event.
Yeah.
So if you're welcome to stay,
You don't
but
need
you
to
you
stay
don't
if you
have to
want
stay
to.
for the rest of the board
So-
meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and thanks, Chris, for putting that all together. Yeah. All right, seeing none, then our next item on the agenda is public hearing, discuss and take action on a final plat and 7th amendment to the developer agreement for Heritage Hills Phase 8, the 7th edition. And is that to you, Lauren?
Yes.
So Viridian submitted an application for Phase 8, which is the 7th edition of Heritage Hills. It's a total of 19 lots. There are 13 single-family homes and 6 twin home units. It doesn't create enough lots to trigger any of the Schumacher Road improvements, and that's usually a question that comes up when a plat comes up for this development. And it did go through Plan Commission, who recommended approval unanimously. I would amend the recommended motion to approve the final plat and the developer agreement for the 7th edition Phase 8 of Heritage Hills. But other than that, I'm here for questions. We also have Dan Day and Matt Brink here from Viridian and Waunakee, who can answer any questions regarding the plat itself.
All right. Do you guys want to say anything before we open the public hearing?
Now we're during public hearing if you want.
Okay, why don't you take the floor now? And then we'll react or see if there's a reaction for public hearing.
Good evening. My name is Dan Day from Waunakee Associates. Here on behalf of Viridian Homes this evening, Matt Brink's with me also. Just coming forward with another phase for Heritage Hills this year. Nothing really extravagant about it besides just applying more market of what we need for the market. And that's a continuation of the Haven Series twin homes and plus some of the smaller single-family home sites on the eastern side of the neighborhood. So it's a relatively small phase this year, but it's kind of what we feel needs for the market for this year. So if there's any questions, we're available if you have them.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, let's open it for public hearing first, and then we'll come back with questions. So let's open the public hearing at 6:21 PM. Do we have anyone online or anyone that has turned in a comment card?
Nope.
And for those online, just click the raise hand and we'll give you a chance to participate.
All right. Second call. All right, third call. Seeing no participants, we'll close the public hearing at 6:22 PM and open it up to the board for questions. So Sam, could we start with you? All
No questions.
right, Jack,
No questions.
Nyla,
Have there been any changes since this was presented the first time?
So we had the zoning and preliminary plat reapproved last year, or year and a half ago, whatever it was. There are no changes from that version of it.
Okay, what were those changes at that time?
We did some modifications just to facilitate some grade issues that we had across the site on the eastern side of the site. But this is fully in conformance with that approved preliminary plat.
Okay, thank you.
all right, Joe, any questions?
This one's probably for either Dan or Lauren. It says in here that this does not have, it's not enough lots to trigger the Schumacher Road improvements. How close is it?
We are, by my calculations, about 30 lots short.
Okay.
Approximately. So, when we first came up with that clause in the development agreement, which came from the traffic study, it was really contemplating that we would have been connected to Schumacher by that point in time. So we'll see what happens next year
Okay.
and where that happens and how it's working out with the DOT improvements out on 19. So
Yeah, that's my bigger concern.
yeah, so I
with
think
that
it
going
really, that's a conversation for the next 9 months as to how that all times out and works out and what the market demands for next year and that kind of thing. So
Okay.
anyway, I think that's an open conversation that we need to have over the coming months.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Chris,
More just a question of how many houses have been built so far? If you know that number.
I do actually. So we have built, we have improved, including this year's phase, 287 single family and twin family units. So I would say at least 80% of those have been sold somewhere in that area, and plus the 200 multifamily units obviously are online out there also. So we're right, with this year's phasing, we'd be at 487 units.
Thank you.
all right, any other questions? Go ahead, Todd.
Just a couple, Dan, maybe this for Matt in particular. You mentioned it's a smaller number of new lots brought into this addition to meet the demand. Is that is that a symptom of what you're seeing as a softer market? And can you give us a few thoughts on what you've seen in the marketplace over the past year or so?
Yeah, it's, the market certainly is more challenging than it was 3 or 4 years ago. That's just, I think, kind of the reality that we've all seen. So when we put these phases together, it's certainly, we have to look at our global portfolio that we have, like east, west, north, and south, and where do we feel the product type that we're looking to bring on will fit the best. So it's kind of a combination of both the market in general, but also what Veridian is looking to bring on, again, in that kind of portfolio. And the way our plats lay out, sometimes the phase would only be for larger front load homes. Some are alleys such as these, which have our more affordable products. So we felt with the way that this phase would come together, it would give us the really kind of the best mix that we were looking for to bring our overall amount of product online. But again, generally with the way interest rates are, the general prevailing political spectrum and how people view that, you wouldn't say it's the hottest market it's ever been, right? That's just reality. So it is a little bit tamped down from what we've seen in years past, but as Dan stated, everything that we bring on in Heritage Hills sells relatively quickly. It's one of our best performing neighborhoods overall. That has not changed. We do not anticipate that to change. Again, the way it shook out this year, just what we needed and what was available, it was just a little bit of a smaller phase for us.
Okay, and while we're chatting, is there any information or new vision or perspective on what you had talked about as a kind of commercial node within the development, the farmstead? Is there timing expectations on when maybe something might start to change there?
We don't have timing on when anything would be improved out there. Veridian will be acquiring that property in March of next year, but we do not have any plans. Nothing has moved forward at this point, but that is when our contract triggers the acquisition of that parcel. So that will again happen in March of 26, but there are no plans in concept phase at this time. People are kicking tires, but nothing substantial at this point.
Thanks.
All right, and Nyla, you had another question.
Thought of another question. You kind of made me remember it.
Yeah.
My question is, I've been walking up there quite a bit and I see that there's private drives or alleys or whatever you want to call them. Whose responsibility is it to plow those and maintain them over the years?
Our HOA would maintain anything that's private.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. Seeing none?
I'll move to approve the final plat and the developer agreement for the 7th edition, Phase 8 of Heritage Hills.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all. Good to
All
see you.
right,
Thank you.
you guys. Right, next up on the agenda, discuss and take action on initial resolution authorizing the borrowing of not to exceed $4.94 million and providing for the insurance and sale of water and electric system, revenue bonds, Series 2025A. And Tim and Todd, this is to you. Yep.
Good
it
evening,
away.
everybody. We're here to talk about 2 resolutions. The first one is for some new money to pay for our well and water tower project. I think many of you are aware that we are constructing a well and a water tower just south of here in the Kilkenny Farms West neighborhood. This was discussed with our utility commission last week, and the utility commission can't approve new borrowings like this. It has to go to the board. The utility commission unanimously approved moving forward with the borrowing. And Kristen, you want me to talk about the next one too, or should we just do one at a time?
Yeah.
The second resolution in front of you is one that would be to pay off some debt in advance of issuing this new debt. It will help us free up some bond covenants regarding the existing debt. And again, that was unanimously approved by our utility commission last week. And Todd is here to kind of give the details on both those issues.
I'm going to make a comment on that second issue first because it kind of sets the stage for the new issue. So when you issue utility revenue bonds and then you issue more bonds, there's a concept called parity, where you can't give new bondholders any better position than prior bondholders. So the original water and electric revenue bonds were issued in 1992, and the utility has since 1992 consistently had bonds outstanding. And there are some covenants in those that are sort of antiquated. So by using cash on hand in the existing reserve to fully pay off all of the other existing debt prior to issuing these new bonds. We basically wiped the slate clean. So that's, there's a little bit of savings because we're prepaying next year's payment. So there's a little bit of interest savings, but the reason we're doing that is again to start with fresh covenants with this new issue. The major ones or the major things we're going to be changing. So these are revenue bonds. They are not general obligations of the village. The prior bonds are mortgage revenue bonds, meaning that technically the collective holders of the bonds had a lien in the form of a mortgage on the utility systems. We just don't really see that in the marketplace anymore. So these will strictly be utility revenue bonds secured by the stream of income coming into the utility. The most significant change we're making is right now the utility pays principal on October 1st of each year. We are going to switch that to May 1st. And the reason we're going to do that is the state's Safe Drinking Water Fund Loan Program, if that is something that the utility accesses in the future. Again, back to that concept of parity, you've got to have the same principal and interest payment dates on all of your revenue bonds. So that Safe Drinking Water Fund Loan is considered a revenue bond. They have 5/1 principal and 5/1 and 11/1 interest. So these new bonds will have that as well. So that will facilitate Safe Drinking Water Fund Loan financing in the future if that becomes applicable. There's a little bit of a reserve that is required under the existing covenants related to depreciation that we're going to be eliminating. There was one more, and I don't think it was that important because it's not coming to my mind right. Yes, thank you, Tim. So the existing bonds require that net revenues of the system be equal to at least 1.3 times the debt service payment. This isn't a big change, but we're going to make that 1.25 times just because that is the standard in the marketplace. So that second action item is just authorizing the payoff of that debt to, again, let us start clean. So I'm going to move to the pre-sale report that was in your packet. There's just a couple pages on here I'll touch on quick. So I'm looking at table 1, and this shows how we arrive at the sizing of 4,940,000, which corresponds with the resolution. So all told, the drilling, the tower, the well building, as well as contingency and engineering is about 5.8 million. The sewer utility presently has significant cash on hand, well above its reserve policy. So sewer will advance to water $1 million to be repaid with interest. So that reduces the amount that we need to borrow. Anytime you issue revenue bonds, there's a requirement to effectively set aside a year's worth of payments in a restricted account, just in case there's any cash flow issues. That money is a security to bondholders to be used first. We have cash on hand from these existing revenue bonds that we're going to be paying off. That amount of cash is enough to pay off all of that existing debt, as well as to cash fund this reserve. So we do not need to finance that reserve. It'll just be taking that existing cash and restricting whatever the final amount ends up being. Roughly 146,000 in issuance expenses. The largest one is what we refer to as the discount. This is a bid item, so underwriters are going to be bidding to provide the lowest combination of interest rate and discount. Those two factor into what's called true interest costs, which would be the basis of award. These will be offered for competitive sale next month. You'll have some opportunity to earn interest while you're spending the money down. So we've assumed about 87,000, which is a credit, and end up with the 4.94 million in total. Table 2 is an estimate of the debt service expense, so kind of working left to right. Again, no existing revenue debt because that will be paid off. This would be the only outstanding issue of bonds once they're in place. When I put this report together a little over a month ago, pre-tariffs, this was a conservative estimate of interest rates. I took sale results from early or middle of March, and I added 0.5%. And that's about where we are right now in terms of where the market has moved and seemed to settle in. So this is, if we were selling today, probably pretty close to what we would see in terms of interest rates. So estimated payments of about 380,000 per year. Again, actual payments will be determined on the day of sale by competitive bid. When we look at revenue bonds, we need to make sure that there are sufficient revenues coming in from the utility in order to make that payment. In this case, even though these are water projects, we are pledging collectively the revenues of the electric and water utility together, which is the way the old bonds were as well. And based on last year's financial performance, after all other operating expenses of the utilities are paid, there's about $4.2 million that can be applied to debt service. That's a little bit more than 11 times the estimated payment. So I talked about that 1.25 times as being the minimum requirement. You're at about 11 times, so exceptionally strong coverage. On the right, all I'm doing is taking that debt payment and then I'm layering in an estimated repayment of that $1 million sewer advance. The thought would be is on the day of sale, we'll build a separate $1 million amortization schedule to provide to Tim. We'll treat it as if it had been part of the borrowing. We'll use the same interest rate, and then the utility will repay sewer on that schedule. And while you don't have a coverage requirement on an advance, I'm showing it as if it was built into that calculation because you, of course, want to be able to repay that advance, and we're still well over 9 times coverage. So the plan going forward, if you wish to proceed tonight, would be to offer these for sale on June 2nd and bring the results of those bids to you for consideration that evening.
All right, thank you. What questions do we have? Chris?
Questions, I mean, our utility is very, very strong financially, and that service coverage ratio, we're well above where any business is going, that they're gonna be, any bank or financial institution's gonna say this is a super strong deal because of the strength of the utilities and the work that's been done already, so I fully support this.
Joe?
No questions. I just want to say thanks to Tim and Todd and Ellers and everybody that's been involved in this because it's really solid work and makes our job easy.
Nyla?
I agree with what Joe just said. Thank you, and thanks for making it easy for us.
Jack?
Thank you.
All right, Sam?
Nothing really, but obviously, because people watch these meetings, Tim, could you just kind of explain the sort of proposed schedule for this whole well and water tower project?
You bet.
For our viewers.
So there's really 3 components to it. The first one is accepting bids on the drilling of the well. We opened bids and the commission awarded the low bid for the well drilling. And that was done, I think, 2 months ago. The well drilling timing of that is that it has to be done contractually by the end of the year. We were hoping it was going to start a little bit sooner, but it'll be done by the end of the year. We are opening bids for the water tower construction at the May meeting. That will hopefully be awarded by the commission at that meeting. And then once the well is completed, there'll be a well house built over the well, and that is scheduled to take pretty much most of 2026. And so if everything goes according to schedule, we hope to be completely done with all 3 components of the project by the end of 2026. It's a long process. There's a lot of regulatory steps we have to go through, but we've pretty much checked all those boxes except for one other thing with the DNR.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
All right. I think this is a great proposal. Thank you guys very much for putting it all together. We are definitely in a strong position as a utility. So I would like to start with the first item and make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the borrowing of not to exceed $4,940,000 and providing for the issuance and sale of water and electric system revenue bond series 2025A.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the second motion will be found on page 49 of your
I will
packet.
move to approve the resolution authorizing redemption of waterworks and electric system mortgage revenue bonds series 2011, 2013A, and series 2016B.
All right. Do we have a second? I think it was actually
Second.
2021.
Well, it was a typo.
Oh,
So
okay.
it
Thank you.
is 11.
Thank you. That makes sense.
I'll
Yeah.
second it.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you guys very much. All Right, next item on the agenda, discuss and take action on proposal from Baker Tilly Advisory Group for IRA renewable tax credit consulting services for the solar panel project at the police department.
Hi, I will take this one. So you may recall back in last October is when the village board approved the construction contract for the police department addition. And at that meeting, they also, the board also approved the alternate number one, which was to add solar panels to the roof. And so this, so we approved the bids in October. However, the way that we do our borrowings for the village is typically every 2 years. So we had to do the borrowing in early 2024 for based on estimates for this project. So we kind of knew that we would likely have to do another borrowing once we knew the final costs and everything. So the solar panels were not part of that original estimate for the borrowing. So so obviously, you know, we have to pay for it. So I looked into some options for grant funding that we could get. And the Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA of 2022, has a program called the Federal Renewable Energy Tax Credits. And so I contacted our auditor, who then contacted somebody within Baker Tilly who specializes in these types of projects and how municipalities can get these credits. And so free of charge, they looked at the project and determined, would we even qualify? And they felt there was, you know, with the panels, and they got all that information, that this would qualify for the project. So it's up to or we would qualify for a 30% credit for the cost. However, there's a lot of paperwork, there's tax filings. This is the first time governments actually can get tax credits. So we would, the only way you know, we don't normally do a tax return. So these are things way out of my wheelhouse in government. It's kind of unprecedented for governments. So we kind of looked, and Todd asked some of his contacts, and I asked around, is there anybody besides Baker Tilly that could assist us? Because we were going to ask Baker Tilly Advisory Group to propose, but we didn't really have anybody else. And everybody we contacted, there's really nobody else that has this expertise. So that's why we only have this one proposal tonight. Obviously, I had a lot in the memo. So you would think this would be a no-brainer, because even though we're paying a significant amount for Baker Tilly's assistance, we would still net out about 31,000 or close to 32,000 toward the project. The only caveat is that things in the government have been kind of unprecedented as well. And a lot of federal programs are changing. And currently, in the current situation, none of the Trump administration's orders have discontinued this program. However, it is expected that Congress, it would take an act of Congress to change this program, but Congress is expected to do some changes in 2025 or 2026. In 2026 is when we would actually do the filing to try and receive the credits. So there's a little risk, because if Baker Tilly starts the work, but ultimately when we go to file, you know, the program it has changed, or we wouldn't qualify, we would still have to pay Baker Tilly for the work they'd done. So that's why I didn't really have a recommendation necessarily, because there is a bit of risk involved that this could change prior to when we would qualify for the credits.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. So discussion, Jack.
Well, at the school board, we did a lot of work on this, because with the intermediate, or with the elementary school, we put geothermal in, and you know, to your point, there's a lot of requirements. You got to pay prevailing wages. Going through the same process with the middle school that's coming online. So I don't believe we used Baker Tilly. I think we were using Wagner.
Well, we did reach out to Steve Summers.
Okay. And-
The school district did not use Baker Tilly. And I think they did get somebody involved
Yeah.
later in the process. We're trying to get somebody involved at the beginning of the process because Steve said it was very challenging at the beginning.
It's very challenging.
And so, he definitely recommended that we get somebody to assist.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Getting
Yeah.
somebody to assist because
Yeah.
this is out of the norm, for governmental bodies. But the way things are so fluid in DC these days, I wonder, are we going to get the credits? So I'm very cautious, moving forward. Having worked in government for most of my career, once things were approved, you could count on them. But today, things have totally changed. So I'd be a little bit leery at this point.
Thanks, Jack. Sam?
So obviously, you're not going to apply for these until 2026. How early, for instance, say we were to wait, for instance, how much further could you go before action would be required from this body just because of that fluidity?
Yes, I asked Baker Tilly that very question because I definitely wanted to push it off as long as possible. So they originally prepared this in February, and they had wanted us to take some sort of action within 30 to 60 days. And they gave me some time, but they definitely want, I think, because they need to know, because there's things that they could get started in terms of getting, you can't apply for the credits until the solar panels are done and it's a certain date. So that's why it's not till 2026. But I think they want to make sure we can get on the schedule. And so they have asked that we have this approved by the end of May. Basically, they gave me another, some extensions, but that's why it's finally, because it had been on the draft agenda for a while. Maybe some of you had noticed it, and we kind of kept pushing it off, hoping we could wait until we knew a little bit more. But they are asking. But again, they wouldn't, certainly whatever preliminary work, we wouldn't have to pay for the whole thing if something changed. But and they wouldn't start it until construction of the solar panels was happening. So, but they want to get us on their schedule.
All right.
Other-
Let's go around first to come back to you if that's okay.
Okay. Every issue has many different perspectives. I mean, I sit here and I hear everyone's concern about the finances. But we have to start considering our climate. It's important that we as a community work toward a more sustainable Waunakee. I've been working for a year on the Sustain Waunakee Committee. I see more and more that it needs to start, and if the village will promote sustainability, it is more likely that citizens will follow. I know this is a very difficult subject, but we just need to look at the total pictures. Finance is part of it, but also working toward a more sustainable Waunakee is also part of it.
And just to clarify, even if we don't approve Baker Tilly, the solar panels, we've already committed to the solar panels.
Right,
So,
but it's
yeah,
important
just
that
for the
we do
audience,
it
I want to
right,
make sure
and
that
I
they know.
want
Yeah.
everyone to, yes, we need to do it right, but also we need to look at the total picture. And, I don't think that we're going to look at not doing the solar panels, but if we're going to do them, we need to do it right with some expertise that none of us have.
All right. Thank you, Nyla. Joe?
Given the current situation in Washington, I'm very concerned about going down this road. I would love to think that if Congress is going to take action and change it, we may be able to squeak in, but I'm not confident of that happening. So, that's all.
Chris?
I pretty much agree with everything that's been stated so far. If you can maybe help catch me up a little bit from when we talked about adding the panels, was there any debate about not having the panels, or was it always pretty much something we were gonna do?
So we looked at it at the police committee and we did not issue a recommendation to the board because the person from our architect was not there. And he came here and he basically said the cost was gonna be about the same whether we did them or not over the long term. So we said, well, okay, why don't we go ahead and do it?
So in essence, when it was decided, there was no grant really necessary for it. All we're looking at really right now from my perspective is, are we gonna get a grant or aren't we gonna get a grant? If we do, great, it's gonna cost us less. If we don't, we've already pretty much decided that we're doing it either way. Is that a fair,
Yeah.
accurate assessment on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I think we can go down. Is anything gonna get delayed because we're waiting on this?
No, I mean, the construction is happening when it normally would happen. I mean, it's just, and I think even if we didn't pass it tonight and they had that deadline, it's not that I couldn't reach back out when we get closer to the solar panel completion and ask them if they'd be willing still to do it. But they're just asking for a decision on this particular proposal.
So my last comment then and question is in regards to Baker Tilly. I thank them for doing it free originally. Are they our current accountants?
Well, so, yes.
So with that,
Well, this is a different piece of that firm. Yep.
understood. But my comment is that they have been awarded as our accountants already, and that contract will come up soon. I would ask if we could talk to them about some flexibility with whether or not they need to have their full payment up to that point, because obviously we wouldn't be getting any. We're not gonna get that grant, but they want to still get paid. So the only danger I see with that is that we have to pay for something that potentially, as these board members have pointed out, we're not gonna get. So it just made the project more expensive, as a result of that. So even if they were willing to say, all right, we're halfway through the project, they're gonna bill us 15,000, maybe they're gonna take 70% of that. I'm just saying, is that something, Brian, am I going out of turn here and talking about this like this?
Well, my understanding in looking at the staff memo was that they would, if you signed the agreement with Baker Tilly and then it turns out that there were changes as a result of Congress such that the tax credit's no longer going to be available, they would stop work at that point in time. But whatever they had done up to that point, they would want to get paid. So if they've incurred $10,000 worth of costs, then that's what they would want to get paid.
But you're saying negotiate with them to see if they would
I'm just saying,
change
they're
this
our
to be a
current
reduction.
accountants. And we
Yeah.
are paying them for their services. They do a great job. I'm just looking at how do we look at this and say, you have some risk, just like we have some risk with this.
Well,
because
the
we
other
don't
thing
know.
too is, I mean, if I heard Renee correctly, they're not going to start work until the solar panels are constructed.
Yeah, there might be some preliminary work that they can get started, but most of it isn't until the panels are actually done.
You always have the ability, if you wanted to, I mean, without seeing this is where the agreement might need to come back in May, your next meeting is, you always have the ability to say, look, we're going to sign the agreement with you. And we definitely, if all of a sudden the credit goes away, we definitely want you to stop working. But we also, essentially, we're going to authorize you to, and I'm just making something up on the fly right now. We authorize you essentially to incur $5,000 worth of cost on the front end in case they need to do some preliminary work. But, you might, when those solar panels get constructed, that may be 8 months from now, 6 months from now, we may have a better idea of what's going to be happening in Washington at that point in time. So it may be a way that you could negotiate the contract here to kind of limit your initial cost to, let's say, $5,000, and then have another triggering event within the agreement. So at least at a board, you'd have a comfort level that I might be able to cut this off at 5, and that's all I've had to incur. But that's, obviously discussions that we would have to have with them, and then we would have to bring the agreement back to you all.
I guess the question that I've got is, do we know if these panels are coming in from China? Are they being made in the US? You know, where,
I don't recall, or I'm not sure if I
and have we
know.
committed to the panels from a pricing standpoint already?
Yes.
Those have been bid, that's firm.
Yep, that was
fixed?
part of this acceptance of the alternate.
Because, you know, I think one of the reasons that they want to do some preliminary work is so that they can organize and pull that data early. You know, there's certain pieces of data you pull early. If you wait until later on and you start going back and reconstructing, it becomes more of a challenge. So I think that's probably why they want to get started a little bit early. And probably just in queue for their work environment.
So I'm wondering, I like the idea of the two-stage. I'm wondering if we could ask them what the preliminary work would cost and then maybe bring it back to our next meeting.
Yeah, I can get a little more information just on the general timing. And right, like, and what the costs for the different segments.
There's also two phases there. One's 6% rebate or tax credit, and the other is 30%. Do they have to do the work on the 6%? You know, if we decide all we want to do is go after the 6% because that's the least risk.
Well, for our particular project and how small it is, so I'm not sure if
Yeah.
you're thinking of the district's project, but the maximum that we can get is the 30%. We don't get any of the add-ons.
But I thought there was like 6%, you know, if you didn't do much, you know, just from just providing the paperwork, you could get a 6% rebate. But if you did all the paperwork and
Oh.
submit it, then you could get up to 30%.
I can check on that. I'm not
Right.
familiar. I thought the 30% was the minimum and then there was the additional add-ons for if you had, if you bought American products, but the project has to be big enough for some of the add-ons. But I can double check
Right.
if there's a smaller
Yeah.
credit.
If there was a smaller credit of 6%, didn't cost much, you know, you'd probably go with that. You know,
There, addendum 1 to
risk.
appendix A, Renee talks about the components of the credit type with the 6% is called the base energy credit. That must be what you're talking about, Chad.
That's correct.
And then the 30% is the next level after that. So we're taking a peek at.
Yeah, the 30% we don't qualify. I'm not exactly sure what this little table is getting at because we don't qualify for the prevailing wage and apprenticeship because of the size. So I think this is an exhibit. This wouldn't necessarily be
Oh, it doesn't. Really.
ours. But I'll find out about that 6%. I do see that on the table. That's not how they explained it to me, but
Right.
I will do some checking.
Thank you.
Right. Good discussion. All right, next item on the agenda, discuss and take action on the 2025-2026 committee board commission appointments. So with that in your packet, if you look in your packet on page 96, 95, thank you. You will see, yes, page 95, a list of the nominees and the applications I believe were made available to everybody online. So do we have any discussion on these? Any questions?
Question.
Yes.
I see on Board of Appeals and Board of Review, we have a vacant alternate.
Yes, we have 2 vacant alternate positions on both of those.
Okay, you didn't get applications or?
We ran, no.
Okay,
So for
thank you.
those, yeah. Mhm. There are a couple of other vacancies. The Community Development Authority and the Plan Commission both have vacancies on them. I've got bids out to people talking about that. They have not decided whether or not they can make the commitment yet. So you should see those coming within the next couple of weeks. Yes.
Did you say plan commission or joint plan commission?
Plan Commission, there should be a vacancy.
Well,
on.
frankly, both, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, Joint Plan Commission is drawn from Plan Commission, so. Those spots need to be filled as well.
Motion to approve is presented.
All right, any other, do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on the motion? Any other questions? I will say before we go into the vote, we have a really robust committee or a community in terms of volunteerism. So some of these boards where you do not see, or committees where you do not see vacancies, we have multiple applicants, 6 or 7 applicants for the single vacancy that we have. One of the things that we might want to talk about in the future is how we can pull those volunteers into some other sort of action in the village to just kind of keep the energy up and the commitment going.
Yeah, and some of the ones where, they're minor and we don't
Mhm.
have people, perhaps we could have Kalen put out a Facebook post, hey, we're looking for people for these specific things, so we can actually get some applicants to
Mhm.
pull from.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So with that, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you to everybody who volunteered and those who put in applications to volunteer. So with that, item number 5, discuss and take action on Department of Transportation acquisition of village right of way at the southwest quadrant of Division and Main Street.
Okay, basically in 2026, the DOT will be doing Highway 19 from River Road to Division Street. And part of the intersection at Division Street, they're going to need some turn lanes. So they need acquisition of some land for that intersection for that project. As you can see in the packet, there's a map showing the land and the area of the land that they're looking to take. And basically, they're looking for the board to approve the sale of the property.
All right. What questions do we have, Chris, or comments?
If I'm looking at the map, I just want to make sure. So is it the pink area that they're taking?
That is the pink area, correct?
Okay, so with that, does it impact at all on the proximity to the basketball court?
It
Is there
does
any,
not.
I mean, we don't have to have it a certain distance away or anything like that?
Yeah, no, it will not.
Okay.
It's basically what they're needing, that portion there is to make that path and ramp area meet ADA requirements.
That was my only question, just. Good.
All right, Joe.
I guess my question is, does doing this make it easier for them to put 4 lanes down Main Street in the future?
I guess I wouldn't know that. This is basically just to help make that intersection, so designated turn lanes
Yeah,
and straight lanes to try to hopefully get the congestion out of that area.
sure. Okay.
Nyla,
No questions.
Jack,
No questions.
Sam?
No questions.
All right. I don't have any questions, although I have your concern as well, Joe.
Well, if it makes you all feel any better, there's nothing you can do to stop the DOT from acquiring this property. It's just a question of whether or not you're gonna make it easy or have them go through the condemnation process.
I would add in, for what it's worth, I think Bill, Lauren and I have been involved in these discussions. I haven't heard any reference for this project as it relates to any future modifications west. Have you?
I would agree, yes.
Bill
I haven't
or
heard nothing
Lauren?
either.
All right. So with that, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the sale of village right of way to the Department of Transportation at the Southwest Quadrant Division and Main Street for the installation of an ADA pedestrian path.
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Number 6, initial discussion regarding the ordinance amendment to adjust the village board member terms. And Joe?
Yes. So I've had discussions with numerous people in the village, as well as Todd and a couple of trustees over time. And really what I'm looking for here is just to kind of get a pulse from the board. Is there an interest in changing from a 2-year term to potentially a 3-year term or any other number of things that could be proposed? And would that apply to only trustees, or would there be something that we'd want to do different with the president role? So that's really what I'm looking for, just kind of how do people feel about it?
So I've,
Sam?
I've, thought about this subject. Obviously, other places have done it. I certainly share some of the reasons you have in here. I would say what you see most communities do is they leave, whether it's trustees or alder, whatever, they leave that at 2 years and they make the president or the mayor 3 years because they want continuity at the helm of that body. So I could, but I've definitely thought about it. Residents have asked me about it. I just haven't brought it up yet because I wanted to think about it more. And perhaps something else, down the line we could consider is, right, we have 2 polling places and we're growing and they have about half the village each. If you look at the current composition of this board, excluding Kristen, 5 of us trustees live on one half and 1 lives on the other half. Now, I'm not necessarily saying draw individual districts because I think that's a terrible idea. It's hard to fill those positions, but perhaps after the next census, we could consider having like 3 of us on one side and 3 of us on the other side. So there's a little bit because, Jack's driving different roads than I do. He's spending time in different parks. He's interacting with, frankly, at times different groups of people too. So,
So am I the only one living out?
well, because Kristen, whatever would
Savannah and
happen, she would
Southbridge.
live anywhere. So
Yeah.
you're the only one of us that votes at the village center of us trustees.
Well, so we should have more
Well, you see, you
people
would,
living in
well-
Southbridge?
well,
I'm kidding, Sam.
yeah, but it's a thought.
No, I see what your
Yeah,
point.
because you
I'm
get
just-
you get a little bit of distribution because people have asked about that, but it's not enough where you can't find people or you're restricting talent or anything like that.
Sam, to your point too, as we continue to grow, we
They have
have
more
to,
polling places.
we are
too.
going to have another polling place and
Right,
we are
so-
actively already researching that.
Good,
And it's going to change the way that the wards are
Yeah.
divvied out too. So
Mhm. But we could definitely discuss that when the time comes.
Jack, your thoughts?
Well, I think, I guess, I like, at large, with the entire, community, even though I'm the odd man out. But, I would, I like the idea of a 3-year term. Because if you get new people in, it takes you some time to, really understand. And, 1 year, you understand the government and what you're doing. Second year, you're active participant. And then 3rd year, you get voted out and you start that process over again. So I think 3-year term would be respectable. And I would also argue that the 3-year term for the president position would be appropriate as well.
Nyla?
I like the idea of a 3-year term. When I first got on the board, it took me the first year to kind of feel the waters, and then it took me another year to feel comfortable enough to actually contribute more than I had in the beginning. And, we're in office right now for 2 years, and then all of a sudden we have to think about whether we want to continue and run a campaign as well as focus on the issues. And it's really a juggling act to try to accomplish everything. And so if we were running for office and being reelected or not reelected every 3 years, it would give us more time to be able to completely focus on the issues and not have our attention divided.
Chris?
So I'm just going to start with saying that our website is amazing, Jared, because I tried to do a lot of research today on other communities in Dane County and what they're doing, and to find information on some of them is not easy. So ours was very easy, so I'll say that. I tried to look at what Dane County, what the different communities are doing, if you guys all had an opportunity. DeForest, McFarland, Windsor, Oregon, which are all similar, I would look at to us, are all on 2-year terms, just they're exactly what we have. The only one I could find that was 3 years was Marshall, which is a little bit further out, very different community than ours. I think this discussion will hinge around the topic at some point of if we become a city or not, and if we're going to change our way of governing. So I think there's just a lot of things we would need to consider before we make any of these changes. And I think it's good that you brought this up, Joe, so we can at least start the discussion. I'm trying to think back. It's been a little while. In starting out, I agree that when I came on the board originally, I was with a group of people that had been on the board for a long time, all of them. So it was fairly intimidating at that point. And then to catch up with everything was a little daunting. Jack, you are speaking, so I'm happy to see that. Even though you're new to, you're participating, and even coming back now, I needed to ask some questions about where the board was on a couple topics. I think that's something that you could say 2 or 3 years, as long as the board is functioning and talking with one another, to make sure we understand where each other's opinions are, take them all into account. Just like when we're listening to citizens, you listen to what they're saying. You may agree with it, you may not, but at least you're getting all the information. So I'd say I'm 50-50 right now, that it could be 2 or 3.
Also, there are pros and cons to everything. When right now in Waunakee, when we decide to run, we know it's going to be a 2-year term. And most people are willing to take that responsibility, but sometimes a 3-year term is longer and it will give more of a hesitation to some people to run. And I don't want to discourage anyone from running who wants to run.
I would also say in terms of some of the other villages you mentioned, some of them, the closest one in size has about 3,000 people smaller than we do. If you look at particularly comparable villages in other parts of the state, and particularly in the Green Bay area, especially Appleton, those places, these are conversations that they have had or are having. So, and even, Menominee Falls is a village. Menominee Falls has 50,000 people. So this conversation, I mean, I'd personally like to stay a village, but we do need to make, in my opinion, a few changes in, whether, term length or whatever, to make that feasible for me for the long term.
I like the idea of staggering so that not everybody's on either a 2-year or a 3-year term, because right now, if you want to run for president, it's always occurs when, we're having an odd year election. And so it's always the same board of trustees or same slate of trustees that has to make the decision, more or less, do they run, even though they're allowed to run for both trustee and president. There really is the decision, are you running for trustee or for president? So I like the idea that it rotates a little bit by staggering the terms. I think a 3-year term would be welcome, but I say that because I don't like campaigning at all. I don't know if that's in the best interest of the functioning or not, but I really do think it's worth the discussion to talk some more about this.
Yeah.
And explore it a little bit more.
But generally what you see, even in some of those larger kind of other areas of the state is we're 2 years and the village president is 3 years. Because I think you would have some people, if we were to pass something like this, wait a second, why are the people that are not running the body, why do they have a longer term than the person who's running it? Because of that stability at the helm conversation. So
Sure. And just to clarify this, and Attorney Kleinmeyer can speak in and if he needs to. I believe this would require a charter ordinance, which would mean that it does have to go to a referendum, correct?
Not necessarily, I mean, it does require a charter ordinance. It doesn't necessarily have to go to a referendum. There's multiple ways to adopt a charter ordinance. One is it requires a 2/3 vote by the village board, but then it doesn't take effect for 60 days. And so citizens could seek to have a referendum question on it, but that requires a certain percentage of voters and a petition to be filed. So it's not necessarily going to require a referendum.
Okay, thank you. I'm curious, particularly from the president's stance, if your term were a 3-year term or a 4-year term, would that have changed your perspective on if you were going
Whether or not I was going to run.
initially or for your recent reelection?
Yeah, good question. I'm a little bit different. I don't know that I'm gonna serve more than 2 or 3 terms to begin with. So, 4 or 6 year stay would be probably fine. But
Okay.
yeah, I would have to really think about it. 2 back-to-back 3 year terms I could see, 3 back-to-back 3 year terms becomes 9 years. For some people, that's absolutely right. But I don't know that that's a bad thing always. So, yeah. It just becomes like anything else, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Other questions? What other information do we need then if we want to continue discussing this?
I think really what we probably would need to know is if we want to pursue it from the trustee side or from the president's side. That's kind of the differentiation that I'm,
I would say
Kidding.
for me, it would be the president side, not just because it's easier, because it's one person and, it's a little further on the horizon, but it's more standard for what you see and the size that we're at right now.
Jack, your thoughts?
I guess I would, I would extend, the president's term to 4 years and trustees to 3 years if we're concerned about the, president being too short. But I think, just building off of Nyla's point, you could say that you're going to prevent somebody from running because you've got a 3 year commitment. But you could also look at it from the opposite point, saying, God, I've got to do this every 2 years, and why do I want to do that? You got to get into a rhythm. And I think that's what you're trying to propose here, with the extension of the terms.
Nyla?
I think we're having a good conversation and I would like to continue it.
Chris?
I'm all over the board, listening to nobody has any bad comments. I think every comment that's been made is a good comment and it's a good position to take. I'm a little concerned with our current state of affairs within politics. The longer you go, there's people that are gonna get more agitated and anxiety ridden if they're not on the side of who's elected.
Yeah.
That's one of the drawbacks, I think, of going to a longer term,
May I make a comment?
but
Okay, I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
But I do believe that there's positives on that side too. So it's one of those glass half empty, glass half full situations where I'm at.
But this is another subject completely, but that makes me wonder about term limits. I don't even know if it's possible.
Well, it's not on your agenda, but I don't believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just ask, I mean, I know it's not the subject, but it's something that many people have said to me, there should be term limits. So.
We can take a closer look at it, but the preliminary work that we did on that was that that's one thing that we cannot do at our level, is
Okay.
even via charter ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
We're in a very lucky position as a village where we have people willing to step up and run and serve on committees and whatnot. This is not necessarily the norm across the state. So I don't know what we would look like in 25 or 30 years where, would we ever be in a situation where we can't find people to run for the board? And term limits would exclude qualified people. Yeah. Knock on wood, we keep being lucky.
Good discussion. Staff is willing to work with you and do research as you'd like us to. I'd also encourage all of you to, maybe as Chris started to do, dabbling around other communities. Sam mentioned Menominee Falls, and I jumped there quick. And I guess my point is that there's a number of ways to skin the cat here. Menominee Falls has an interesting all 3 year terms for the president and the 6 trustees. But 1 year is 3 trustees. The next year is the other 3 trustees. And then the following year is just the village president. Which I haven't necessarily seen before. So there's perhaps a variety of approaches to it. Good discussion if you like, we can continue this on the agenda.
Yeah, and I don't want to shut down the discussion on the term limits. I just, that's a preliminary look that was done. If that's something that the village truly wants to look into, we can do a deeper dive, including talking to the elections commission to see if they've seen any other villages try to do that. So I just want to make sure that I don't want to shut that down, Nyla, if that's something you want
Could-
pursued.
Yeah, could we have staff look into that?
Yeah. And it may be a couple of different models that if we wanted to split it up, what seems to be working or whether or not it's working, I guess is maybe a judgment call, but what are some of the other practices in other communities similar to ours, maybe? Anything else? Joe?
Well, I think in light of the discussion that we've had, I think it would be advantageous to have staff and or myself, probably look at some of the other municipalities, dig into Menominee Falls a little bit. Maybe we've got a contact over there that could shed some light on how they feel that's worked for them. If there's other areas that have something different than what we've got, I would love to hear more from them if they've had any issues with that, that sort of thing.
And some of the others like Ashwaubenon. Obviously, Jared used to work in Bellevue. He can certainly provide us some insight in that area from his own experience as
Yeah.
well as some of, particularly in that region, there have been a lot of villages similar in size to ours that have recently incorporated, Fox Crossing being one of them, Greenville. So it would be good to look at some of those as an example as well, because they're new at that structure of government. So what are they doing from a contemporary standpoint?
All right. Thank you all for the good discussion. Thanks, Joe,
Hey,
for
thank
bringing
you.
this up and putting this on. All right, with that, we should hang around here for the rest of the night unless we have another,
I move to adjourn.
all right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all.
Thank you.